This is part 8 of a series where I cover an iceberg chart I made concerning Undertale and DeltaRune. If you haven't seen any of the previous parts, do so before watching this video. This video contains spoilers for Undertale and DeltaRune. If you haven't played the games or certain parts of it, and don't want it to be spoiled, I recommend playing it first. This video also contains swearing and deals with many topics many might not be comfortable hearing, and is not recommended for younger audiences, and is intended for ages 13 and up. All images, music, and footage are owned by their respective owners. Please don't go after or harass anyone mentioned in this video. Hey everyone, we are back with Tier 8 of the Iceberg. Before we begin, I just wanted to say thank you all for the support on this series. It really does mean a lot. Now, let's get back through an Overstuffed UnderTale and DeltaRune Iceberg Explained. Before we get into Tier 8, I want to give another warning for this tier. I know I already had a disclaimer at the beginning, but when it comes to this tier specifically, I want to have it here. This tier talks about a variety of serious topics, some of which many might not be comfortable with. A good majority of the entries on this tier aren't that bad, but others are. The beginning will have topics that aren't too serious, with the first entries not being too big of a deal, but as the video continues, some entries will get darker and darker. If at any point you feel uncomfortable with any of the subject matter, feel free to skip the entry, or just skip to the end of the video, or wait until Tier 9 gets released. I also want to emphasize to people to not go after anyone mentioned in this video, as I feel like it will make things worse. I always say at the end of these videos to leave comments about any information I get wrong, but when it comes to this tier especially, I want to be sure I am right on this, and people to correct me if I get anything wrong, and I will address it in a corrections video. Heck, feel free to email me on my contact email in the description if you want to. I also encourage you to look more into any of the entries you hear if they sound interesting to you. Now, let's get through Tier 8. True Lab or the Apologist. You've searched through every corner of knowledge pertaining to Undertale and DeltaRune. Well, almost. There are some corners you haven't checked, a few of which are the ones the fandom doesn't like talking about. Is it too late to turn back now? As we get deeper down the iceberg, we are going to encounter darker territory. To reflect this tier will include dark topics including potential lore, theories, and topics involving the fandom like fan controversy, drama, abuse, grooming, and even attempted murder. To lighten things up, it will also include weird or crazy theories. ABC_123_A.OGG was a bluff. Toby Fox added more secrets into Undertale after its release, despite what he says in the original version of the file, meaning that he was likely joking with what he said. Dog Dollar is a DogeCoin reference. This theory proposes the idea that Dog Dollar is a reference to DogeCoin as it has a dog on a dollar, and its value decreases every chapter, referencing how the value of DogeCoin has decreased in recent years. Super Paper Mario similarities. Detective Mar uploaded a video where he talks about the striking similarities between Undertale and Super Paper Mario. Some of this includes how there is a tragedy behind the events in their games and motivates the antagonists. The imagery of powerful heart-like objects which gives the characters great power. A nerdy lizard that is incredibly socially awkward. The main characters in Super Paper Mario befriend most of the villains and save them from the darkness. And an arachnid antagonist. Undertale and DeltaRune take a lot of inspiration from RPGs, a majority of which came from Nintendo, and some have even compared Fox's work to Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. So it's not too surprising to see similarities, but it's still interesting to say the least. Smile Association. Reddit user Drysen pointed out that smiles are often used for bad things. For example, Flowey smiles through the majority of the game. In the genocide route, the exclamation point turns into a smile. The amalgamate sprites have smiles on them, Chara has a smile when you meet them, and nearly every major character dies with a smile in genocide. YouTube Undertale Disbelief demo Mislabeling. For quite some time, UnderTale was commonly mislabeled as the demo for UnderTale Disbelief. It's unsure why this happened or why YouTube considered it its own thing, but nowadays, I haven't seen this occur, at least not as much. Pipis are Spamton's eggs. Toby commented under a tweet about a new emoji with blue eggs about how a Spamton's nest has Pipis in it. This was most likely a joke on Toby's part, but a lot of people were very confused by it and have been debating if, for one, they are Spamtons, and two, if Spamton lays the Pipis like eggs. It also doesn't help that the Pipis are portrayed as blue eggs. Asgore Is Satan. Asgore and Satan, or the Devil, have some similarities to each other. Asgore is a bipedal, bearded goat man with large horns, has a trident, kills children, takes their souls, and rules over an underground kingdom of inhuman monsters. It's possible that this was done to subvert our expectations with who Asgore actually is, as when we meet him in person, he's actually a goofy, soft, kind, and caring man. Disney's Carnage. Disney's Carnage is an intentionally poorly written DeltaRune fanfiction or troll pasta disguised as a Disney or animated troll pasta. Spiders Are Cannibals. In the spider bake sale, it says, "Come eat food made by spiders, for spiders, of spiders." In real life, there are species of spiders that eat each other, and the river person says that spiders' favorite food are spiders. Ralsei Is A Girl? In 2018, TreeCycle uploaded a video talking about how Ralsei is a girl. The theory itself is not very strong, as the whole basis is just the idea of how Ralsei and Asriel aren't the same, therefore Ralsei can be a girl. There's a bit of a misconception within the community that Ralsei is a girl due to how feminine he is, but in reality, he's just a boy with feminine traits, especially because he calls himself a prince. Fake Chapter 3, 4, and 5 leaks. DeltaRune had begun to trend after Chapter 2's release, which was more popular than Chapter 1, and with the end of the cliffhanger, it left people curious and speculating as to what the next chapter will be. Toby stated after the chapter's release that Chapters 3, 4, and 5 would all be released on the same day, and this time you would have to pay for it, and while he doesn't know when it would be released, nor how much it would cost, he does say that it will cost more than UnderTale, which is $10 on Steam. With this announcement and Chapter 2 trending on the internet, a lot of people started to make fan-made images, animations, and songs and posting them online. But the problem was that a good majority of these people claimed that these were real and were leaks for Chapters 3, 4, and 5. These people were also thanking Toby for giving them access to this, when none of this was true at all. Toby and the team likely took a big break after releasing and finishing Chapter 2, and they didn't make any content for the next 3 chapters at this point. If they did, we would have had a definitive date before it was announced this April, or merely had it announced after Chapter 2's release. Frisk is a remnant of Chara and Asriel. Reddit user Fabo_HD posted a theory talking about the possibility that Frisk could be the combination of Asriel and Chara's remnants, explaining things such as the game over sequence, why when we die the soul shatters, and why we're able to pass through the barrier in every neutral run. Dusty toys have Asriel's dust on them. In the Underground's library, yes, I said that right, there's a book that says that a monster's dust is spread around their favorite thing when they die, and when you check the toys in New Home, they're really dusty. So according to the theory, Asriel may have his dust on them. GameFAQ's Controversy. GameFAQs is a video gaming web forum. In late 2015, they held a competition to determine what the best game ever was. Because UnderTale's popularity was at its peak, it won Best Game and overtook older and beloved games such as Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Many people on the forums weren't very happy about this due to it being a newer game at the time. 700 Club. The 700 Club is a talk show on the Christian Broadcasting Network, which first aired in 1966. They talk of news, interview guests, and most of all, work to spread the word of Christianity and God. They'll also answer some questions some people have, sometimes asking for advice. In 2015, they had a question asked by a mother who saw that on her daughter's phone, she had many pictures of a cartoon skeleton with one glowing blue eye and wearing a hoodie, obviously being a reference to Sans. The mother wasn't very happy about this because she thought of it as demonic imagery and it came from a video game which she also had a strong distaste for. Other ways to save Asriel. People have come up with multiple theories and ways that Asriel could have been saved. Some are interesting, although all of them are a bit far-fetched. A few that I'll go over include the idea that boss monster physiology could have saved Asriel by using the spiritual energy of Toriel and Asgore, Alphys creating a new soul for Asriel, Frisk giving some of their soul to Asriel, and a lot more. Frisk is Chara's undead body. Frisk compared to Chara is strange. We never talk to them, just told that they are speaking. Their eyes are shut, and Frisk is yellow, which is strange compared to Chara's more natural skin. So what this theory is saying is that Frisk is Chara's zombie. Shopkeepers are murderers. A small theory goes that the reason for shopkeepers in Undertale who sell the past humans' belongings got them by killing the humans. But this theory may not be true because as far as we know, Asgore, Toriel, and Asriel are the only boss monsters to appear in game, and while we don't know when each of the humans fell into the underground, we know one hasn't appeared in a long time. And most of the monsters don't even know what one would look like, as most of them assume we're just another monster child. Kris is actually Potassium deficient. According to a theory posted on r/DeltaRune by a now deleted Reddit user, Kris may be Potassium deficient based on similar traits between the two. These being fatigue, muscle spasms, heart palpitations, muscle stiffness, skin discoloration, and mood swings. Burnout On Sans. With the Undertale AU community as big as it is, and a large majority of the content being nothing but an alternate Sans or version of Megalovania, a lot of people are getting tired and burnt out over having most of these AUs being focused on Sans, and want something new, fresh, and unique, and just a breath of fresh air. So there have been people wanting for others to stop making alternate Sanses, and instead do an AU surrounding Asgore, Undyne, or even someone else. Only time will tell if these kind of AUs get made, or even if they get as much attention as the Sans AUs, but it is worth noting that there are AUs that don't focus on Sans and just so happen to have him in there. You just gotta go looking for them. I personally feel like if you really want to have these AUs exist, you should probably make them yourself. Lightner merchandise ban. In October of 2021, it was said that Toby Fox requested that there should be no merchandise made on any of the Lightners. Toby would explain more of this on his Tumblr, where he doesn't explain everything, but he does say that certain merch of certain characters wouldn't fit right for the game, and he told Fangamer from the beginning that some characters would be more or less off limits after a certain point. He further encouraged the fans to make their own merch of the characters they like, and he likes seeing fans have the merchandise they want and create what they want to have for themselves. Sans' sweat is him melting due to determination. According to the theory, the reason for Sans sweating is similar to Undyne, that is, she's too determined for her own good. But this doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Alphys also sweats and nothing bad happens to her. I've also seen the argument for he's melting because skeletons don't sweat, but they also don't bleed, so that doesn't matter either. Muffet's dark side. If you don't immediately kill Muffet in the genocide run, she'll talk about how someone who looked like a big nerd, that obviously being Alphys, said to come with her as she was going to block all of Hotlands. Muffet, however, refused, saying,
"A spider never leaves her web."
She also comments saying that she regrets not capturing her and turning her into a delicious donut. Due to this, it's safe to say that Muffet has a very malicious aspect to hers, where she is willing to kidnap monsters and turn them into pastries, and it could be interpreted that she played a part on the genocide route, as she could have helped everything from being killed by the player, but she didn't. Kissy Cutie. You might be familiar with this if you've seen any of Andrew Cunningham's streams. Kissy Cutie is an Undertale fan game created by Zocolat Games. It takes place after the pacifist route and follows the monsters trying to adjust to their new life on the surface. The game is perhaps infamous for the fact that the humans outside of Frisk are abruptly racist towards the monsters, and how similar the racism is compared to the Jim Crow South after the Reconstruction era of the US. El Hugeni. El Hugeni is a YouTuber infamous for his animated video game music videos, which often parody popular songs. These songs are known for often being fully auto-tuned and not the best quality. One of his most infamous is his UnderTale Genocide Route music video, Story of UnderTale. It parodies Bad Romance by Lady Gaga and is perhaps one of the more hated UnderTale fan songs due to the poor and cheap animation, overly auto-tuned voice work, and inaccuracies to the source material. Since its release, it has gained an ironic cult following. He's also made videos on UnderTale Yellow and a few more on UnderTale's other routes. Besides his videos, he's also been accused of taking down videos and channels that have spoken negatively about him, which results in a reputation where he can't take constructive criticism and opinions. Noelle kills and traps the Addison in the Freeze Ring in the Snowgrave route. After accepting to get the Freeze Ring in the Snowgrave route, the screen will cut to black. We hear the ice shock attack, and then we get the ring. Afterwards, the Addison will never be seen again. It's possible that the Addison is frozen in their store, but they may also be trapped in the freeze ring, according to the theory. Alphys didn't write the entries. A theory that had made rounds was a theory that some, if not all of the entries in the True Lab were not written by Alphys, but instead Sans and or Gaster, which implies that Gaster may have worked on the experiments instead. This is mostly because of the inconsistent grammar. However, when you look at all the entries and compare it to when you speak to her or read her texts, her grammar is not very consistent, and grammar inconsistency is often used to portray mood. Not to mention, Gaster's speech pattern is very different, and we don't know much of his experiments outside of the core, so there's no reason to assume he had anything to do with the determination experiments. Why I gifted the Pope UnderTale. MatPat released a video on July 5th, 2016, talking about him at an event with other YouTubers who gave the Pope gifts. MatPat gave Pope Francis a Steam key of UnderTale because he thought that the game represented similar themes of forgiveness and compassion that the Pope talked about in the speech he made earlier that year. It made some noise, although people were not very thrilled of this action for various reasons, part of which was due to the age of the Pope, and him not likely knowing how to use Steam in the first place. MatPat would eventually address the drama, although would also defend himself, talking of how there were other YouTubers who gave worse gifts. Genocide editing canonically happens or Sans wouldn't be depressed. It's been hinted throughout the game that Sans has symptoms of depression. Along with this, a popular fanon is the idea that Sans remembers all the resets and knows of all the timelines. So the theory suggests the idea that Sans is depressed because he remembers genocide, thus the genocide route and the soulless pacifist route is the canonical version of the game. Now this does all sound interesting, except for the fact that this is all based on a fanon that isn't correct whatsoever. So Sans is definitely not depressed because he'd remember your genocides. Nintendo taking down Megalovania cover. Sometime in December 2018, Nintendo took down a Megalovania cover based on Super Smash Bros. At first, the community took it as another weird move by Nintendo, as this decision is nothing new, even if it may not be fair. But people thought it actually meant more, meaning that UnderTale was coming to Smash with Megalovania being in the game. And of course, they were proven right the next year. Monsters Are Cannibals. This is a small UnderTale theory proposed by user man_o_many. The theory talks about how it seems like monsters have a small amount of resources, how when you inspect Toriel's fridge, it will say how there's white fur in there, and monsters are mostly made of magic, and the food in the underground is made of pure energy. Another piece of evidence could be the fact that, as said earlier, spiders eat each other in the underground. Using Snowgrave on other enemies. If you manage to use Snowgrave on any other enemies through things like hacks, they end up turning into red mist and disappear. This is very interesting when thinking about how Snowgrave affects Birdly, and many think this may hint to Birdly and others who got frozen potentially not being dead. UnderTale Kickstarter fraud. with certain stuff from Undertale's Kickstarter that is mentioned in the description and goals not coming out, or certain features not present in the game. Some have taken the Kickstarter to be somewhat fraudulent. DeltaRune virus allegations. A lot of antivirus programs listed DeltaRune's demo as a virus, but this is not true at all. It's just a mistake of the software. Survey_program uninstaller deleting files. Apparently, when trying to uninstall DeltaRune's demo, it ended up deleting a lot more than just the game, which Toby addressed on Twitter saying that he would fix it. When deleting it, it actually ended up deleting the entire directory for the game. Dogami and Doggeressa are technically related. When talking to the K9 unit with Endogyny in the True Pacifist dialogue, Dogami ponders on the fact that since his and Doggeressa's family members bonded into Endogyny, would that mean that he technically married his sister? He then quickly dismisses it, as dogs often do this anyway. Fanon versus canon debates. With there being many fan interpretations of Undertale and DeltaRune, they've often overlooked the actual versions of the characters for many fans, leading to inaccurate versions of them. Because of this, there have been many times where people have tried to point out what the actual versions of these characters are, though sometimes these versions can be just as inaccurate as the ones they try to debunk. The one most hotly debated is Sans due to his popularity, and the amount of fanons that he has. I'm thinking of doing my own video on this topic, although there are plenty of great videos about this already. Chara's next world is real life. A crazy and unlikely interpretation of what Chara refers to as the next world is real life, and telling us to kill people IRL. This is similar to how Flowey has said on the Undertale Twitter account how we should kill our friends and family. Obviously, I don't think this is the case, and I don't think Toby is trying to encourage the death of people IRL, nor do I think that's what Toby was trying to say with Chara. Frisk is a racist caricature for Asians. Frisk's skin color is yellow. The reason for this was because Toby wanted to make them a character that people could relate to, so he went for a racially neutral color, yellow. This is similar reasoning as to why other characters in media, like certain LEGO minifigures, are also this color. However, a few people have criticized this skin color due to how many 20th century media would often racistly depict Asian people having yellow skin, and Frisk's eyes appearing closed don't help these claims. Alphys kills herself in the neutral route. Depending on the neutral route, the phone call will mention how no one has seen Alphys, and the various dialogue hints that Alphys has disappeared. And seeing as how she wasn't doing the best mentally, especially after the Mettaton X fight, it's been widely considered and hinted that in various neutral routes, Alphys takes her own life in some way. Asgore's suicide. If you manage to do a neutral run where you've killed some monsters and spare Flowey, he'll make an offer where if you spare everyone you come across, he won't kill the king. Upon doing this and sparing Asgore, he'll initially have the same speech as he does if you spare him until he retracts that statement, calling it a fantasy. He'll then speak of how you remind him of a human that fell down long ago, referring to Chara, and mentions the prophecy of the DeltaRune, and how he thinks you're the angel. He'll then fatally wound himself, asking the human to cross the barrier with Asgore's soul and find a way to free monster kind, saying it's what Asriel would have wanted, then apologizing before turning to dust. Flowey will then destroy the soul and say how he knows there's no point to fighting them before letting them escape the underground. Flowey will then comment on how your choices didn't matter before encouraging you to get a happier ending with other characters. Susie has abusive parents. This was a commonly believed theory formed before chapters 3 and 4. So far in DeltaRune, we haven't seen Susie's parents yet. However, based on her appearance, behavior, and interactions with others, it can be assumed that she isn't in the best place. She has tattered clothes, described as disgusting by others, eats chalk, talks about eating sweets, hisses when she gets sprayed, gets excited when she gets her own room in the Dark World in chapter 2, and doesn't seem to call her parents and avoids doing so when she's visiting Kris. This implies that her home life is rather neglectful, and that she may resent them for treating her the way they seem to. This all leads to her being the school bully. Now, in Chapter 3, it's revealed that the reason for a lot of this is because Susie's family moved a lot, and she never got to be close to anyone, and when she tried to be good at something, people were easy to shut her down. It could still be possible that her parents are neglectful of their child, but we'll have to see. Killing Vegetoids by eating them. In the UnderTale demo, you can kill Vegetoids by using one of the actions and eating them. It's definitely a very unique way for killing monsters, and it's possible that Toby removed this due to the fact that you're eating a living monster. Kris is Asriel's half-human, half-monster brother. An incredibly obscure and crazy batshit insane theory suggests the possibility of Kris being Asgore's bastard child, and due to this knowledge, Toriel divorced Asgore after learning of this. This is impossible because not only does Kris not have any physical traits of Asgore, but it's also impossible for monsters to have human children. So Sorry Origins. As stated in Tier 1, So Sorry is a secret character in UnderTale that was added by a fan during the Kickstarter. But as it turns out, it was someone's persona. So Sorry was originally supposed to be a fat fetish character. For this reason, the character was controversial and the original creator even got harassed by fans who weren't happy with these origins, which got to the point where Toby had to tell fans to stop. If you're not trying to look for it though, So Sorry doesn't have any connections to said furry OC and isn't fetishized as much as other characters. Unless you do try to find it, in which case you will find something. Shipping. Shipping is the term used whenever a fan puts two or more characters into a relationship. It's a really contentious topic for fandoms and fan communities, and when the toxicity gets to a boiling point, it can really damage a fandom's reputation, especially if these ships have controversial issues, such as an age gap, blood relations, or just the ship not being very good. UnderTale is unfortunately one of these. Their most infamous ship is Franz, a shipping between Frisk and Sans. This is a highly controversial ship even outside the fandom due to the pedophilic implications of the ship. However, it is worth noting that many Franz shippers only ship the two characters when they're depicted as being the same age, but unfortunately there are some fan artists who fully embrace the problematic implications. Another one that went to infamous levels, although not to the same levels as Franz, is the shipping between Sans and Pipis, known as Fontcest. The reason for its controversy being the fact that the two are brothers in the game. Along with this, the AU community shippers are also known for something called Sancest, a term referring to people shipping different alternate versions of Sans with each other, which many find weird just because of how Sans is pretty much in love with himself. Backlash against Let's Plays. When UnderTale got a lot of popularity after its release, there were many popular gaming YouTubers who wanted to jump on the bandwagon. Unfortunately, not everyone was aware of the best way to play these games according to the young fanbase, so these creators got a lot of backlash by these fans who spoiled the game. It was because of this that Markiplier cancelled his Let's Play series. This toxicity was so bad that Toby had to tell fans to calm down and not to spoil the game. Sadly, this hasn't happened to just UnderTale as it happens to the other chapters of DeltaRune, even if it wasn't as big as back then, resulting in Jacksepticeye saying how he won't make any more videos on DeltaRune and will only play it in his spare time. Rule 34. This refers to one of the oldest rules of the internet that has gone unchanged. If it exists, there's porn of it. With UnderTale, DeltaRune, and the AUs having as massive a communities as they do, none of them are exceptions. Obviously, don't look any of this up if you're too young. Pornographic AUs. With the UnderTale AU being as big as it is, it's bound to have some rather inappropriate versions, if you will, of the universe it's based on. It's easy to see why these things might be controversial, but keep in mind, and the same goes for some Rule 34 artists, that some of these NSFW artists are not trying to harm anyone as far as we're concerned. But if you're under the age of 18, obviously do not look any of these up. Ownership debacle. A problem with making AUs in the UnderTale AU community, and just in general, is that sometimes creators willingly give up ownership of the AU to the community, which also gives them the idea that they are entitled to any AU that is made. This includes times when people try to steal or take credit for an AU that they don't have, or trying to spread rumors of the creators giving up ownership. For example, in early 2024, Some people claimed that story shift was handed over to the community, but these were lies made to try to take it away from the creator. Classic swap and original underswap and underfell posts deleted. Popcorn Prince is the original creator of the OG version of Underswap. This version of Underswap is often referred to by the community as Classic Swap or Canon Swap due to how different the interpretation the fandom has made is from the original. The original idea wasn't a fully personality swap, with the exceptions of a couple of swaps. Sadly, as time went on, Popcorn Prince became more disappointed that the community kept inaccurately portraying Sans and the font size that was going around. Eventually, this all led to them stepping away from the fandom and deleting the original Underswap post. Similarly, Vic the Underfella, creator of Underfell, decided to step away from the community and delete the original Underfell post due to many struggles they were going through in life, and the fact that many people got harassed for liking the AU, along with the growing NSFW art at the time. While Vic has returned to the community, Popcorn Prince seems to have no such plans and doesn't plan to continue it. FlowerFell Drama. FlowerFell was a Fell AU that spawned over a few stories originally created by Siviosane and Leviticus and their friends. The stories included Overgrowth and Last Reset. It's an AU that is well known among the community for both its stories and its unfortunate fall. It is an AU where Frisk, who is 18+, has flowers that grow on them every time they come back to life, and they can't take them off because of how much it hurts. Because of Frisk's kind attitude, Sans eventually becomes compassionate to Frisk and gives up on Kill or Be Killed before traveling with them to the barrier. It was originally going to be a Franz fanfic, although the relationship was changed to being platonic for unknown reasons. I know a lot of people will say that it was made platonic because Leviticus didn't favor Franz, but as it turned out, this actually isn't correct, so yeah, I'm not sure why it isn't a Franz fanfic when it was originally going to be. The AU itself dealt with the theme of being kind and remaining kind in the face of a world that seeks to destroy you. The Skybow had worked on a similar AU called Flowertail, where flowers grow on the monsters, and the two often had their AUs cross over to one another. Unfortunately, FlowerFell would be cancelled for a variety of reasons, with its main content being taken down. Many people were stealing both official and fan art of the AU, and were stealing FlowerFell from the original creators. They would often rewrite parts that Leviticus didn't appreciate, resulting in him taking down Overgrowth. Another big factor was a majority of people known as Fictionkin, people who identify with fictional characters, were making roleplay blogs and were claiming content as their own, and tried to force their own takes and interpretations of the AU onto it, some of whom would even send threats to the creators, claiming that they knew better than the creator themselves. Sane had a huge paranoia over losing their properties, and this caused them to lash out at everyone around them, which in turn made things worse. The drama and toxicity took a toll on Sane's mental health, and so they decided to cancel FlowerFell, shut down the FlowerFell blog, and remade FlowerFell, Frisk, and Sans into new characters. Many of the creators regret ever working on FlowerFell and don't want to have anything to do with it, and friendships soon devolved as years went by. Kazefiend still has fond memories and has acted as a source of information for people that may not know what happened. Now you'd think this is where the drama ends, but no. In 2021, Streamline Workshop released a video called How Shipping Destroyed an AU, talking about FlowerFell. The video itself was poorly researched and was unintentionally spreading misinformation about the creators and AU, as well as telling people who enjoyed the AU that they're wrong for doing so. Many people went after the creators and blamed them for what was going on, when it was a lot more complicated than that. Kaze did reach out to Streamline, talking to them about how wrong they were. Streamline kept the video up, and it's still up to this day, albeit pinned a comment talking about the corrections and made a community post about the stuff they got wrong, neither of which helped by a lot. The unhappy reason why Chara went to Mount Ebot. The reason for why Chara came to Mount Ebot is never stated, although Asriel does describe it as unhappy. There are two theories that could be thought of. The first revolves around the fall being on purpose. This often gets thrown along with the Chara is the narrator theory, but through certain dialogue in-game, like when checking the ribbon or Chara's comment about the lack of knives, if we're to believe that Chara is the narrator, then it can be implied that Chara's life on the surface, and the reason for falling, was indeed unhappy. It's implied that Chara was abused by the humans who they lived with, and might have ran away and sought for Ebot to end their suffering. This could also explain their distaste for humanity. However, while some of this may be true, it's been confirmed both in the intro and in other sources that Chara accidentally tripped into the underground rather than on purpose. This can then be the second interpretation, which is that the reason was unhappy because Chara didn't mean to come into the underground and couldn't fix this accident. Game Theory Beef. Game Theory has a second channel called GT Live, which is where they discuss certain topics and do their reactions to videos and series and play games. In one of these videos, they played the demo for an as of now unreleased independent video game called Heartbound. But rather than treat and respect this game like its own thing, they clickbaited the video to make it look like an Undertale related game and didn't link the demo in the description. When the developer, Pirate Software, called them out for this, MatPat tried to defend himself, saying how he didn't think of it as harmful but rather respectful. After repeatedly trying to defend and explain himself, Toby Fox himself called him out on Twitter saying, "You should link to any game you play. Creators need all the help they can get. And think carefully if you're misleading your audience with how you present your videos. You went too far this time." This was one of the biggest shocks to the community due to how serious the whole situation was, and how Toby got dead serious to call out someone. The link for Heartbound will be in the description. Materia Music. Materia Music is a music company that handles the rights for Undertale and DeltaRune's soundtracks. They, especially the CEO, Sebastian Wolf, though not everyone, are infamous for their unreliability with copyright problems regarding the use of the soundtracks, especially on YouTube, and the company's unprofessionalism regarding said claims. Their most controversial moment was in January 2024, when Wolf claimed that the Undertale Yellow soundtrack was in violation with the rights of the Undertale soundtrack requiring a trademark to be used. He was so unprofessional about the whole situation that he went on to bet $10,000 on them having Toby's permission, despite Fox posting on Twitter in June 2022 how he's fine with people using and making covers for music. Toby would then not only defend Undertale Yellow, but would also state in a tweet that as a token of apology, he donated $20,000 to a charity of Team Undertale Yellow's choosing, Able Gamers, which can be considered $10K from Wolf and $10K from Fox, and that going forward, he'll help to make a more clear set guidelines regarding the usage of Undertale and DeltaRune's audio, and provide better information on how to license the music property. This drama became so infamous that jokes and memes started coming out about how Wolf is the villainous version of Toby. Annoying Dog Lawsuit. In 2020, Toby Fox sued a Chinese individual who trademarked Undertale Annoying Dog, selling Annoying Dog related backpacks. This is a problem that is not exclusive to Undertale, as plenty of other indie video games and developers have run into similar issues. The trademark has since then been abandoned. JX. After Chapter 2's release, a lot of topic music channels, including Toby Fox, were hacked by an unknown person known as JX for some reason. Asriel abused by Chara. This is a really dark and big theory made by Tumblr user No Chocolate that talks about the relationship between Chara and Asriel and the possible emotionally abusive and manipulative traits that Chara had due to Asriel showing symptoms of an abused victim. There's a few hints from the tapes that says that Chara shamed Asriel for crying, like when Asriel denies his own emotions in front of Chara while saying, "Big kids don't cry," which isn't a healthy viewpoint. It's then said that Chara had skill for having a complete composure, and that's why they were able to get away with this stuff. Flowey, before the Asriel boss fight, says he believes that the human, who they believe to be Chara, was manipulating all the monsters to love them. He also said in the genocide route that he manipulated people to see every possible choice and assumed that Chara would have done the same thing, meaning that Chara was perhaps aware of Chara's manipulative tendencies. After Frisk shows genuine love and care for Asriel, they ask, "You're not actually Chara, are you?" After realizing that Frisk was being genuine, unlike Chara. Asriel asks Chara after the pacifist route, "I was always a crybaby, wasn't I, Chara?" Meaning that this was a common nickname for Asriel, which isn't a good one, and Chara would leave Asriel to die for resisting to take a human life. After Chara tells Asriel their plans, he understandably doesn't like the plan, and when he tells them he doesn't like this, Chara asks if they're crying, to which Asriel says no, thus belittling Asriel's emotions and deflecting the attention from Chara, and often Asriel looked up to Chara, which gave them a big power imbalance. Flowey said that he would rather die and kill himself because without Chara, he thought the world was so empty. And he was very eager to please Chara in the genocide run. According to the theory, Chara learns that they can do more by being hurt, so they kept taking and taking, and in the genocide route, they killed Flowey because there's nothing left that Chara wants from him. Overall, the theory goes to say that Chara kept belittling Asriel until he agreed with their plans. At the end of True Pacifist, Asriel finally admits that Chara wasn't the greatest person and that he would have rather been with Frisk instead. The theory ultimately ends with, resist the misconception that a victim must appear weak, innocent, and blameless. All too often, abuse is invisible, even to the person being accused. This theory is very divisive among fans, as while it does bring up some good points about abuse, a lot of people take certain points of the theory and Tumblr posts as exaggerations to prove their point, especially because it's worth remembering that Chara was a kid when they died. As for how I feel, I'll talk about it in a possible later video sometime in the future where I talk about Chara and Asriel, but as for now, I think that while the theory does make some good points, I don't entirely agree with it. But even then, it's still pretty scary to see how similar this is to how we treat Noelle in the Snowgrave route. Camila Cuevas. Camila Cuevas is an artist in the UnderTale AU community who's most well known for creating the AU Glitch Tale. She made speed paints, animations, and generally wrote for her series. Her drama started off from being part of the Peaches drama, where she, along with other artists, kept trying to make a bigger deal out of something and make the artist, Peaches, look worse than they may have actually been. Along with this, she's been caught plagiarizing and tracing her animations, and has also been proven to not be able to take criticism, and her responses sometimes result in her younger fan base at the time attack said critics. But her biggest drama came when it turned out that one of the people who worked on Glitch Tale, the co-writer Vare, was revealed to be a child predator. She initially claims to have also been a victim of manipulation by Vare, but that has been disproven for the fact that there were multiple people who also seemed to be groomers, and that there have been people who have revealed that she knew more than she had claimed, revealing the chess that she partook in, and at this point, she's been exposed as a child predator enabler. This all culminated in a video where she ranted against the people calling her out while denying the claims. She got so heated in this video that she said, and I'm not kidding when I say this, that you don't deserve an apology for being groomed. Yeah, definitely Bored Oranges made a whole video talking about the drama, which I will link in the description. Nyx the Shield. Nyx the Shield is a music artist who's most well known for making remixes and fan songs for UnderTale, DeltaRune, UnderTale AUs, and more. He's done soundtracks for Glitch Tale and X-Tale. Once Cuevas' chats were leaked, he claimed to have distanced himself from Cuevas, claiming he didn't know about it. However, it's been proven that he may have also been part of her chats for a while, and so likely knew about the grooming stuff. Outside of UnderTale and DeltaRune, he's had drama with the Friday Night Funkin' community, where he also made a mod for a game based on Underverse called the X Event mod. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that has more to do with Friday Night Funkin' than UnderTale, but because he did work on an UnderTale related mod for it, I'll briefly talk about it. He openly attacks the Friday Night Funkin' community as he doesn't enjoy making videos on Friday Night Funkin' and only did so to get views. This gained a lot of criticism because he worked on a pretty good mod for a game which he claims to hate and made videos out of profit. Since then, he hasn't made any Friday Night Funkin' content anymore. Huda the Antagonist. Huda the Antagonist was a former member of the UnderTale SoundCloud community until it was outed that she was a pedophile. Upon this coming out, the community kicked her out in 2020. She then went into the Friday Night Funkin' community until she was outed in 2022, and then tried to deny many claims about her. UnderTale Bits and Pieces and the drama that followed. UnderTale Bits and Pieces is a mod that takes UnderTale and changes its graphics, or the way the game looks, and adds new content like bosses, characters, music, and areas into the game. Unfortunately, everything would change as production was put on halt indefinitely on November 11, 2023, following the arrest of the lead developer for the possession of child pornography. After this, the mod would get one last update with the Susie update, which left the game unstable, and the team did not want anyone to continue it due to the controversy. Some members of the old team, along with new faces, reunited as Top Hat Interactive, and restarted everything from scratch as a new project called UnderTale Project Harmony. Meanwhile, a group of fans united to become the Hopes and Dreams team to develop a patch for what remained called UnderTale New Hope. but this was strongly disapproved by Top Hat Interactive, and the two made an agreement on January of this year that the Hopes and Dreams team would delete all traces from Bits and Pieces to take a more original direction. Blog the Great Rogue and PJ's Daycare. Yeah, people who remember these names don't have the nicest things to say about both. Blog the Great Rogue was a former Undertale AU artist who attracted many young viewers and made various problematic material involving alternate stances and AUs. Her most infamous AU is Paper Jam's Daycare, or just PJ's Daycare, where the whole premise is that Paper Jam has a daycare where he takes care of younger versions of the alternate versions of Sans. One of the gimmicks of this series, and many more she made, would be that the commenters could respond as characters in the universe and progress the story. You can probably see where the issues arise, but as you can probably imagine, this attracted plenty of younger viewers, and a lot of the time, the stories resulted in times where the comic had some incredibly problematic stories and situations which are handled poorly, and the comments just egging it on. Some of the content includes the attraction between adults and kids, and downplaying suicide. Other disgusting works she created are Jammy's Love, a comic about a preteen PJ falling in love and having a fling with an adult fresh, Vampire Verse, a comic about a character named Jasper attempting to intoxicate a butler named Suave to have his way with him, Little Jammy Hood, a comic that has PJ take the role of Little Red Riding Hood, and Fresh as the big bad wolf, with Fresh assaulting Little Jammy, and Nerd and Jock, which takes a variety of stanzas and romanticized rape, suicide, and minors. And what makes this even more disturbing was that, like PJ's Daycare, there were impressionable minors who just kept on commenting and egging it on. Thankfully, the community would come together and were able to get the platforms she was posting on taken away, but it's still disturbing to think of all the scars and damage she inflicted and others with her art, if you can even call it that. We have now hit the final entry of Tier 8. And this is one that I'm sure plenty of you who are familiar with Undertale and DeltaRune drama were just waiting for. This is one of the things that gets thrown around as one of the most extreme things that fans have ever done, and that is Avimides and the Needle Cookie incident. On May 10th, 2017, Tumblr artist Avimides was at a convention when she was offered a cookie by a quote-unquote fan. Without thinking, she took it and ate it, which upon doing so, a needle had pierced her tongue, and if it were to pass into her body system, it could have killed her. She detailed the story in a post and talked about how she didn't find out who did it, and how she had lost a lot of trust in people giving her sweets. It's never been revealed who did it, nor why they did it, but there are many theories and speculation behind it. The most popular theory that you'll hear when it comes to this story is that someone tried to murder her because she often drew France. This is, as a reminder, however, speculation, and while this version of the story does get spread like wildfire, there is no base for this claim. Outside of this, she's been accused of sexually harassing minors, neglecting her pet birds, cyberbullying, and emotional blackmailing and stealing money from her friends. These also don't have a lot of evidence, but with Avimides having their ex account at one point say that they were sorry for everything, it hints that there was something going on behind the scenes. But again, this is all speculation, and we most likely will never know about the real motivations. The only thing we do know for certain was, in 2017, someone tried to kill a Tumblr artist for some unknown reason. Regardless of what you think happened, I think there's one thing that can be learned from this. Be careful of people you don't know in real life. And be especially careful if they hand you something like treats. You may never know what their true motives may be. And with that, we end Tier 8. But before we end the video, I do want to talk about what I feel is important when it comes to talking about toxic and disturbed fans and fandoms in general. Throughout this tier, we've talked about some of the extremes a lot of fans will go in the fandom, some worse than others, either because they were young or because of some malicious intent. A lot of the time, when it comes to these kind of things, many people will often see these kind of stories and will often write the entire fandom as being the same. However, most of the time, That is not the case. Usually, in these kinds of situations, when people are talking about toxic fandoms, they're usually talking about a small majority of those fans, but oftentimes, because of how loud that small majority is, others assume that's how the rest are, when that isn't the case. Even then, plenty of the drama in Undertale's past has come from younger fans who didn't know better, but now they're older and hopefully learned from their mistakes and have grown. And over these last 10 years, I've seen many people in the fandom who are decent people who just really like Undertale and DeltaRune. However, I've seen many people who are bad human beings who I never want to hear about again, and we should learn from that. At the end of the day, every community, no matter who you look at, has bad apples. But I guarantee that for every bad apple, there's around 5 good apples to replace those. And often, you gotta take the good with the bad. Despite everything, I'm still proud to be a fan of Undertale and DeltaRune. And if you're like me, and like Undertale and or DeltaRune, I think you should be too, regardless of what's out there. I don't know if any of this is making any sense, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say, and I just wanted to leave this kind of message with this. Especially because part of Undertale's message is to forgive others and to be kind to one another. And on a side note, another thing that I think is important when it comes to these stories is you should look more into these stories so as to not unintentionally spread misinformation. But with that, we actually end the video here. Next up, we'll tackle Tier 9, which will be much lighter than what we just talked about here, and I hope to see you then. Make sure to comment anything I either missed about the entries, as well as any entries you'd like to see added to the iceberg. Until then, see ya, stay safe out there, and remember to stay determined.